Hi, I'm Kevin, and welcome to the channel. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you for all your likes, subscribes, and comments. I am truly grateful for all your participation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave it down below, and I will do my best to answer it. Today, we're talking about the installation of the Tongsheng 48-volt 500-watt e-bike kit. So let's get started. There was a couple things I had to do to prepare for the install. So here is the bike, and I am removing the chain guard. We also had to remove the chain, which is a very simple process. And then we'll get started with removing the crank. Since this is an old bike, I believe it was from the 70s. The crank came off pretty easy, but I did end up having to use a torch on one of the bearing races on the other side there. Other than that, there was no problems. So it was a 3-piece crank that basically just unbolted. And once we got that popped off, we're good to go. So now it's time to get the motor ready to set in the bottom bracket. Now this is an all-in-one unit, and you can see here that all you got to do is slide it into the bottom bracket, and then you'll be able to bolt it on the other side there. Pretty much that's it. It's all contained in one unit. It's actually a fairly simple kit to install. The brackets were a little bit weird, but we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So you set it in the bottom bracket and get it ready to go. Then we will start to mount everything else as needed. There are 2 bolts and this bracket right here. One bolt's on the bracket, and the other bolt goes through the frame into the bracket. It is a little tight if you have caveman hands like I do, but a little work you'll get her, no problem. So once you get that bolted to the bottom of the motor, you just flip the bracket up, and you'll be able to run the other bolt through the frame into the top of that bracket. And this is what it looks like on the bottom side, and this is what it looks like through the top side. It is very secure. Here is the bracket that goes on the crank. You can see it has several holes for everything to bolt through. So you're gonna have to use some spacers on the bolts. And here are the spacers and the one larger spacer. You're going to want to pre-fit the bracket just so you know what spacers you're going to have to use for it. So as you can see here, I've got the small spacers in place. Here are the larger spacers that fit over the crankset. And this is the nut for it. And this is the wrench for it. I thought it was very nice for them to include that wrench in the kit itself. Now it's time to fit the spacers and pick out which one we want to use for it. Then we put our bracket over the top of that, and we have the small spacers in the bolts in the bracket, so I could just screw them right in and not have any issues. And then we just put everything on. So then we just secure everything, and you can see here there are 3 attaching points on that bracket that goes over the bottom bracket, and then there's 2 attaching points that go right straight to the motor. So it's a real nice kit. I have to say they covered all the bases to keep you from having minimum problems with this kit. It's really good. Here you can see where the spacers are and all the attaching points. As you can see, everything lined up really great. There's the spot that goes through the frame, and we're ready to move on to the speed sensor. So the speed sensor will attach to the back part of the frame, and there's a magnet that goes on the spoke, so every time it goes past the sensor, it will determine the speed you're in. I really pay attention to zip tying my wire as I go, just so that it's nice and neat and tidy. I can always replace the zip ties if I don't like where it's at first. It definitely helps keep things decluttered. And like I said, the zip ties are on the speed sensor there, and that goes on the back part of the frame. Then when you install the magnet, you want to make sure that it's going to pass over the sensor just so that it'll clear and you don't have any problems with that. So obviously you just tighten it up and just make your adjustment where you need to put it, and you're done with that. Pretty easy peasy as far as I can see. So let's get the pedals on the crank arms. Is that even what you call them? Let me know in the comments if they're called crank or crank arms. These are $15 pedals from Amazon. And all you have to do is find the right one for the right one and the left one for the left one. They're clearly marked on there. And put them together. They look really nice once they're on the bike, though. As you can see here, everything's made to where there's plenty of clearance, and it looks very, very professional. It looks good. Now we're going to get to the cockpit and get this old brake lever off and put the new brake lever on, and I will loosely put that on there. So once the brake lever's on, then it's time to work on the thumb throttle, get that ready to go. And we just slide that over right next to the brake lever, and that's there. And I keep everything nice and loose so that I can adjust it and move it all forward at first until I get the grip on. Now for the display, it has these little rubber grommets that you have to remove off of the display brackets. And they fit over the handlebars once you get them out. Once you install the bracket over those little rubber grommets and tighten it down, it won't move. It's a real nice way to keep things from moving around. So take the screws out of the brackets and then slide the mount over the handlebar. It's a little bit tricky at first, but you'll figure it out. So once you get everything where you want it, the display where you like it, just tighten everything up and you will be good to go. So this is what it looks like when the display's done. Now it's time to install the display control, and that's just basically bolted to the handlebar. So you just want to put it where you want it and tighten her down, and you'll be good to go with that. So I had to remove all the other stuff on this side here, the shifter and the grip to put the other brake handle on it. So I put the brake handle on there, slide it right over there, get it up as far as I can, put the shifter back on it, and start with the grips. Now it's time to install the brake cable, and it can be a little tricky sometimes to get in that little hole there, but it is what it is, right? All in all, the kit's pretty great. I'm really, really impressed with how everything fit and snugged up and was with relatively no problem. So snugging everything up now a little bit to make sure once I get it where I want it, it's not going to move. Hopefully these videos are helpful for you guys. If you could please like, subscribe, share it with a friend if they're into the e-bike thing too, and we can figure all this stuff out together. And here it is finished up. So that's all my cockpit stuff there, good to go, ready to go. So here's how I ran the wiring. As you can see, I try to keep things just nice and tight and neat, and if there's any loose spots, I double back it so that it's nice and tidy. I try to, run things along the side of the down tube. That way it's a little bit protected from rocks and stuff like that. I mean, it's a bike. What are you going to do, right? But, just take a little bit of time and get things routed nice and pretty and to the best of your ability. Here's how I ran the battery wire. The battery's going to sit right there on that bike rack. And so I ran it to the back so that I could install the battery and just plug it right in. Now, as you can see here, I got my fancy ratchet straps for the battery. Now, this battery was for a different bike. And so now I can use the battery for both bikes. So it was too big to be able to fit it inside the down tube or anything and actually be able to pedal and stuff. So I installed it on that bike rack, and it worked out pretty great. Although, you know, I'd much rather have something better looking than them ratchet straps on there, but it works just fine. And now I didn't have to buy an extra battery for both bikes, right? So I can use that same battery for both bikes, which is very, very nice. Now that we got everything buttoned up and ready to go, it's time to go for a ride. So this is the very first time I'm turned it on, and I didn't make the ride very long, so I'm not going to talk much during here. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how it went the very first time I turned it on, and this is it right here. And there you have it. That's the whole kit, all put together and ready to go. Now, it's been a few weeks since I've owned it, and I've had zero issues with it. It's been a really great ride, and I would say it's definitely worth the $347. And, you know, I mean, obviously that's not with a battery, but if you have a battery lying around that you're not using or from an old bike or something, then this is a great kit. I mean, great. So, once again, please like and subscribe or follow or share if you like. We'd really love seeing you stick around, ask any questions you like, and I will do my best to take care of it. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend.